What's up, grinders? Welcome back to the channel. Today you're going to become a giga nerd about constructed languages. Now, as most of you know, I love constructed languages. It's probably the one thing that sets me apart realistically from most language YouTubers out there, because you'll get your generic language YouTubers who are like, I'm going to learn European languages, and then you'll get your random ones which are like, I'm going to learn the Asian languages, and then every now and then someone will touch on some other language in between, and then you got this freaking idiot over here who's like, I'm gonna learn languages no one speaks, because I don't know why, I just like to do that stuff. Like, I like to put myself through pain and suffering, generally for no one to actually understand me anyway. So I've dived into pretty much a bunch of constructed languages, learnt the basics of them, and never actually got to use them with anyone, and therefore I've lost my ability in them, but I've got like a deep set of knowledge on constructed languages, auxiliary languages, and things like this, because I just find the whole goddamn field to be bloody fascinating. Anyway, today, I was over here rummaging around in my book box, and I'm going to be honest, it wasn't because I was looking for a book. I just found like a packet of Easter eggs. Here we go. Right here, sorry Elmo. And I was like just munching away on them quite happily, and I accidentally dropped one. It rolled down into my book box, and I was like, oh no! Because I've packed up all my books getting ready for a move in a couple of months. Yeah, I actually started packing early for once in my life, and I need to find this Easter egg. But while I was in there, okay, I promise you, I'm going to get back to the point. While I was in there, I found a bunch of books I totally forgot about. So one second. So here we go. I have a ton of books on Ido. In fact, I may be the person in Australia, even in the Southern Hemisphere, who has the most Ido books in this part of the world. Now, for you, normal bystander sitting there, you probably have no idea what the fuck is an Ido. Let me explain it to you, okay? So I speak Esperanto, and the number of speakers for Esperanto varies wildly, somewhere in the hundreds of thousands up to the millions. We don't know. But Esperanto is a constructed language. It's over 130 years old, and when it was constructed, within that very short period of history, maybe 20, 30 years around the beginning of its construction, obviously, because it was a constructed language, it was still quite malleable, and there were a bunch of people who wanted to change the language. If you work with constructed languages, what happens is everyone just thinks that they can do a better job than the person who created it, which realistically, if they could, they would go and do it themselves, but they love to change a project that already exists. This is just part and parcel of like playing around with constructed languages. Someone will want to change the language. It even happens to this day. People, even today, are like, I can make Esperanto better. And it's like, bro, this is already spoken by like friggin' 1 million people. You can try change it if you want. No one's going to listen to you, okay? It's a language now. Just deal with it. And they're like, no, it must change. But anyway, back at the beginning of Esperanto, a offshoot of Esperanto happened, and that offshoot was called Ido. And it literally in Esperanto and in Ido itself means offspring, okay? And it basically took all the ideas of the day around how to improve Esperanto and put it into its own separate language. So the funny thing is, all of those ideas to improve Esperanto are actually now seen as almost bad ideas. And I'll give you examples. So what most people complain about for Esperanto, if they haven't learnt it or they're not interested in it or they just want to diss on Esperanto, is they'll say, it's too European, okay? It's too European. It's got too much romance, dramatic words, whatever. It should have taken from more words around the world, okay? Ido actually wanted to solve this problem, but a different problem at the creation of its language. And what it did is it took Esperanto and it said, there's too much Slavic and other random words from around the world in this. We need to make it more European, you know, to make it more refined for the taste of the European continent. And trust me, I'm going to show you some of these books and I'm going to try read them to you because I can kind of understand them. And I'm going to give you the Esperanto and I'm going to let you guys like listen to the two. I think it could be quite fun. And the second thing it did is it did actually try to improve on what was considered a gender issue in Esperanto at the time, which is not really an issue anymore because that kind of naturally solved itself over time. But it also removed sounds that it thought would be difficult for speakers of European languages, mainly like the throaty H sound, which is like the sound type of thing. And also it basically got rid of the in Esperanto, we have something called the tabel vortoj, which is table words. And basically, words like what, this, that, they're built out of a table, okay? And if you know basically the two axes of the table, you can build out any one of these correlative type of words. And it's actually really simple. But to Europeans at the beginning of like the history of Esperanto, this was disgusting. This did not look like any European language. But nowadays, this type of thing is actually quite beneficial to Esperanto speakers coming from outside of Europe, because they can just easily learn these two axes and learn all of these words without any problem. And again, because Esperanto was more heavily focused on agglutination at this period in history, as opposed to trying to absorb as many words as possible from European languages, it is actually now technically more suited as an international language compared to Ido. And Ido was meant to be, at the time when they created it, meant to be a better international language. Which is why I always say, when someone says, I can make a better auxiliary language, international language, whatever, I call bullshit on it. Because realistically, yeah, you probably could, based on the current scenario or the current world we live within. But by the time it gets popular, let's say 100 years from now, and realistically, AI is going to deal with this problem in 100 years, but let's say it got popular within 100 years, and by popular I mean respective to Esperanto, it probably would not be the most suited language for whatever the world is at that time. So the time it takes for it to get popular compared to how the world changes, well, the world changes at a rate faster than your language will get popular. But anyway, I'm kind of segueing a little bit right now, and I wanted to show you these books because I have collections of books pretty much for all sorts of random constructed languages. So one second. So you might be wondering, how the hell did I get my hands on a bunch of books like this? And funnily enough, it happened in the most random of way. So I was over in Germany doing some Esperanto related stuff, and somehow I got my ass roped into going to an Ido meetup. Yeah, there was actually an Ido meetup in Germany, and I'm pretty sure it still happens to this day because they still send me these booklets. And I was there and I thought it was fascinating. And I remember, funnily enough, while I was there, I wanted to talk to them, but they spoke Ido and I spoke Esperanto. So I just started speaking Esperanto to them because I figured, you know, our two languages are close enough. And I found out, even though there was like 10 Ido people in this room, they were doing translations and stuff, none of them actually spoke the language well enough to have a conversation. So what ended up happening is I spoke Esperanto with my mate who was an Esperanto speaker, and he translated it to German. So failure on the international front, I guess, there. But well, it kind of worked because I used Esperanto with a German speaker and then he translated it. But anyway, besides the point, they were quite curious, I was quite curious, and they signed me up to a newsletter, and then they started sending me books. And it's one of those funny things where you guys have probably seen it. Esperanto speakers will go out there and they'll try to like get people interested in their language, and what they generally do is they'll speak with, you know, people learning other languages. Ido speakers will then try to siphon off Esperanto speakers, and they'll be like, come to our language, it's better than this one, type of thing. So it's like this marketing funnel coming from, you know, normal languages into Esperanto, then that goes all the way down into Ido. Who knows where it goes from there? It could go down into anywhere from, realistically. But anyway, I got these books, and literally there's an Esperanto flag here, and that is the Ido flag. And I'm going to try and read some of this with you guys. So I'm going to move the camera into a different position, hopefully. And we're going to like look at this, and I'm curious to know, if you're a European speaker, you will probably understand the Ido better than the Esperanto. Now, I'm going to be completely honest. I'm not one of those like well-off YouTubers who has like, you know, the full-on sick looking down camera shot and, you know, the lighting and all that stuff. So you guys better hope that this dick shot does not actually become a dick shot. So I'm going to show you this book, and just ignore the fact that there's some hairy white legs right here, okay? So we're going to have a look at this. So as you can see, this is the internals of the booklet that they've sent to me. And we're just going to like jump to a random page until I find something that looks like it's worth my time reading. It's just a bunch of old people. Holy shit, we got Bernie Sanders in the Ido book? Okay, let's read this shit. Okay, so let's begin. By the way, I'm assuming, well, I had a quick look at like Ido pronunciation. For the most part, it's pretty much exactly like Esperanto, except they drop some sounds. So we've got to es clara la expectante candidato por uso presidenteso Bernie Sanders compre nas revoluciono altre cam marxisti descriptas ca nociono. Jesus Christ, I'm actually struggling with this. It is clear, or something is clear. I don't know what that means. The something about the candidate, maybe the expected candidate, US President Bernie Sanders, as something, the revolution, Marxist, whatever. In fact, I'm actually understanding this better with English. Jesus, this is really different. Nome fundamentale renverso di la presenta povla e proprietella relati. So, like, I can see in name of the fundamental something or rather. Okay, I'm gonna have to, like, step out. Politics is obviously too much of a problem for me. Let's go to something that's a little bit more easier. Okay. La dursto estas vidinda. Like, I know that means faithful in Esperanto. Estas must be like estas. In Esperanto, we'd say estas. De longe d'aqua. See, like, we don't do this in Esperanto very often. We only do this in, like, poetry type of thing. Fascinas la homo. So, something for long the water has fascinated people. Dum la antic... Oh, wow, they got a Q? Holy shit, I don't even know how to pronounce that. I'm guessing it's a K sound. Dum la antica epoca utre fairo, sulo ed aero ol appartenis alla quad fundamentale elementi. So they've obviously got different endings in ido here, okay? So what we're seeing here is saying during the antique times, or, you know, like historical times, I don't know what that part is, something about air. Ol in Esperanto means then, belongs to... See, this is one of those things where, like, we had the tabel vortoj in Esperanto, so I'm not sure what this is, but if you're a French speaker or something like that, you can probably pick this one up. Is a foundational element. Okay, let's try one more thing. We're going to pick out one more. Okay, we'll go with this one right here. Whoa, almost gave you a dick shot. Okay, de nullo venas nullo. So from nothingness comes nothing. Cent septec kvin. I'm reading this in Esperanto right now. Yari ante nun Julius Robert Mayer desovris la lego pri la materno dil energio. So it's like in the year 175 before now, Julius Roberts, whatever his name is, descovris. So I'm guessing covri in Esperanto means to cover. La lego pri la materno. So the reading, I guess, of the morning energy. Like, we don't have dil in Esperanto, but I'm pretty sure in Spanish we've got something like del. La maxim importanta coloni dil durema energi politicisto esas consate novigebla energi. Okay, well, this has been a struggle. I actually assumed I would be able to read more of this, and you might be wondering, why haven't I tried reading this yet? Well, because I've got more books and I've got time. You know, that's kind of fascinating. I'm actually starting to think that with Ido, it might be easier for a native Romance speaker to understand that than an Esperanto speaker who doesn't speak a Romance language. Like, I've dabbled with Spanish, which is why I could pick out a couple of little things there. But I'm not fluent or even conversational or even freaking basic in any Romance language. So I struggled with that. Like, I really did. I'm now curious, for those of you out there who are native Romance speakers, like speakers of Romance languages, tell me how much you could actually understand when you were looking at that. In fact, I'm thinking that the majority of what I understood actually came from English, because I'm assuming Ido, like Esperanto, modern terminology has been adopted from English, and therefore that's what I'm seeing. I did see some Esperanto in there, but realistically, not that much. And there's not that many Ido speakers out there, if you guys are curious. I know that there's probably a handful, realistically. Maybe less than 50. I know there's like a Telegram group where there's basically Esperanto speakers learning about Ido, because at the end of the day, there's not that many Ido speakers who are not also Esperanto speakers, although there are a couple. That's pretty much it. If you've enjoyed this, like, interesting look into random constructed language history, let me know in the comment section below, and I'll see you all in the next video. And I seriously need to speak to Elmo. Elmo, you fucking pig. You gotta lay off the goddamn chocolates, man.